Welcome to Political Trade Secrets, an inside look at campaigns and politics, where we pull back the curtain, look under the hood, and investigate all aspects of politics and how elections are won. Now, here's your host, Dustin Olson.
And welcome to Political Trade Secrets. I'm your host, Dustin Olson. It's great to have everybody streaming in here from across the internet. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to have a great topic and a great guest. We're going to be talking about how to build an amazing and awesome, a powerful party organization with Pat Melton, who has managed campaigns across the country, worked with party organizations across the country, and we're going to be learning from his experiences from multiple states and in different campaigns and how you too can build a great state and local party organization that can really make a difference for your candidates. And with that, I'm really excited to have our co-host Sean Bartley joining us. Sean, how are you doing today?
Doing well. Good morning to you. I'm looking forward to this conversation as well. I really do think it's going to be a great one and one that can make a difference for folks wherever you are. If you've ever been involved in party politics or you've never been involved in party politics, there is a place for you. And I think it's going to be a great conversation to really vet that out today.
Yeah, it's really the rubber meets the road part of politics. If you want to tomorrow start making a difference, you can show up at your local party headquarters. And if there isn't a local party headquarters, you can get elected and then help create one or something. We talked with Chairman Michael Bennett there in Palm Beach County in Florida in the fall, right before the election. And he really is an example of how party leadership can make a real difference. They made real inroads into minority communities in that election and really did make a difference in the overall vote. And you saw that in Florida this year. So really party leaders can make a real big difference. So thank you to everybody who's joined us. You can join the conversation as we talk with Pat throughout this program about building party organizations. You can post a comment wherever you're at, whether you're on YouTube or you're on Facebook, you're on Periscope, wherever you're at. Please do leave a message. Right, again, some good mornings. Thank you very much. Appreciate everybody joining us today. And I already have a comment. I'm so excited for the topic today. Recently was elected as a committee member in my state party to represent my county. It was really a neat experience because it was a contested race and so many people voted for me. I would say get active in your town, county, and state committee. It's a place you can make a really big difference and be a leader in the party. My goal is to be on the executive committee one day. Also, if you are a fellow young conservative, get involved in college Republicans and young Republicans. I think we'll be able to talk about all those things as we go through this conversation today. So thank you very much for all the questions and comments that are being posted and for sharing. Look at that. We have someone already sharing the program today. And just a reminder, you too can join ShareForce and reignite American patriotism. So go to politicaltradesecrets.com right now and sign up to be a Political Trade Secrets Insider. You can also be part of the ShareForce. Really, the only thing you need to do to be part of the ShareForce is to share the program. I think we already have something like 30 or 40 shares. So thank you to everybody for doing that. It really does make a difference for us. And thank you for taking that action to be engaged. You can also go to politicaltradesecrets.com to sign up to be the Political Trade Secrets Insider, get exclusive stuff. And then additionally, one of the best ways to be a part of the conversation is to join us in our texting community. And we've already had conversations with people this morning. We let them know what the topic was going to be today, and people are adding their thoughts to it, and really helps us with show prep. And it really is great. We've also been sending out other articles and other resources to people who are part of that. So for all of you out there in the podcasting community who only are hearing us, that's 202-918-3345. Again, 202-918-3345. Text that right now, and we will be able to include you into our texting community and make sure that you get all the freshest political trade secrets. Sean, tell people how else they can be a part of the program.
Absolutely. Look, if you're thinking about how you can be a powerful political leader, which is what we're going to be talking about today, or you're thinking about running for office, reach out to us at Olson Strategies. It's OLSON strategies.com. We would love to have a conversation with you about what it takes and really get you on your first steps to getting out there. It's you can email me, Sean, SEAN, at olsonstrategies.com, or Dustin at olsonstrategies.com. We would love to have that conversation with you today. We're also proud to be sponsored by Grassfire. What do? It's all of the one-on-one, human-to-human interaction that your campaign can have. You only get one shot to make a first impression. Almost every campaign, your odds are you're going to get one, maybe two actual conversations with voters. Maybe. So make them count. Nobody does it better than Grassfire. It's www.grassfire.us. And then they also fuel 10centtexting.com. This is a way to reach voters right where they are. 82% of people open every text message they get. That's compared to people opening maybe 10 to 20% of their emails. So 10-cent texting, make it count, an image, GIF, short video right there in the body of the text message, and have this be as impactful as it can possibly be with the voter on the other end. And so, yeah, 10centtexting.com. Dustin.
This is something we saw with county parties this last election cycle and state parties using texting, if they used it really well, to help give people important voting information when registration deadlines were up, when absentee ballots were going out. It's a really great tool for party organizations to use along the way as well. I'm going to put the graphic back up. If people want to text us to become part of the texting community, you can go there, 202-918-3345. Also, you can post questions during the show, and we can bring people in there as well. So I'm going to go to a couple of the so I misspoke earlier. I said that we had about 30 or so shares, and it looks like we've had 67 shares already. So thank you very much, Women Reigniting American Patriotism, and also for your commitment to reigniting American patriotism.
Yes.
That's what this show is about. Thank you. And then Sean, if you'd like to give us one of those comments from community.
Yeah. So look, people are commenting on the text line. Here's the first sentence from a lot of great thoughts here. Here, the Republican Party needs to come out of hiding and get younger generations in leadership positions. That's definitely something that we get, and that goes on because we have geriatric Republicans running the party. They've closed down the party headquarters,
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the other things that I'm really getting from that, and there's a lot of great other great things here, and for the interest of time, we'll keep moving, but is that being out there and being visible that there's something going on. I think that's definitely a great point. So,
well, we found in the last year that the Republican Party is much more interested. Republicans are more interested in connecting with people one-on-one in person. And that is a bit of a competitive advantage as we go out there and we build Republican parties. And to be clear, we are conservatives here. We are out to empower conservatives to be the most effective citizens they can be, as well as being the most effective and powerful political leaders they can be. So this is going to be an awesome conversation because like you and I, we've managed races across the country. I'm really excited to get Pat's thoughts. He's managed races across the country from the West Coast all the way to, you're there in Ohio, and he's from Ohio originally as well. I think, when I was there as a consultant for the RNC back with the special election, I would have met the two of you for the very first time.
Yes.
At that time. That's been many years ago. Lots of experience working in political party operations, doing campaign management, and also public affairs, pushing issues and winning issues for candidates and clients. So that's the kind of experience that you want to have if you want to win a race, if you want to build a party organization. Have somebody who has that experience where things may be a little bit different, but you also learn that things are the same no matter where you're at also at the same time. So with that, I'm going to hit the button. And we're going to go on with the show.
Excellent.
All right. Welcome, Pat.
Hey, Pat. So
long time no see.
Yeah. So Dustin, as you mentioned, so I've known Pat a long time, all the way back to our college Republican days. But as you were mentioning, Pat has 18 years of experience in political party operations, campaign management, and public affairs. So really been all over the gamut, and he's either managed or consulted on multiple local, state, and federal and issue advocacy campaigns across the country. And as I mentioned, so I got to know Pat through college Republicans, and we became fast friends because we were both interested in building a strong party. And so that was really important to us, and promoting conservatism was one of the things that we really worked on and were focused on and worked on together. And then later I went and worked at the Ohio Republican Party. And when I was there, Pat was working there as well. So we really got to know each other even better then. So it was really a exciting time, and have gotten to know Pat for quite a while. And we've gotten to work on a lot of great things together. But I'm going to open it up to Pat to, welcome, and just share a little bit about yourself and what got you into politics.
Now, I appreciate Dustin and Sean having me on today. It's a different experience for me. But as I said, I had to put on a shirt for the first time that had buttons on it. But what got me into politics was when I was a freshman at Ohio State back in 2000. Not to date myself, but I went up to the college Republican table, and that's what, I just signed up and started going, and it got me interested. But my first campaign experience, that was obviously W's first campaign, but Representative Pat T-Berry was the first one I actually knocked on a door for. And so it was after that I was hooked. I didn't, and I did, volunteered for anybody that I could find that needed help back then. And then I went to, I worked my way up to go to work at the White House in 2003, and then came back to Ohio with much founded energy and not wanting to be in Washington, and then just kept volunteering and recruiting people, and then became a central committee person after, people said, don't do that because it's not your time. And then I went to go work for the Ohio Republican Party. I was there for almost 5 years. And I worked for Chairman Bennett, who is arguably the best chairman in the history of the party. I'm a little biased, but
well, I would say from across the country, he is truly the example of a party leader.
Yeah. And he even he served longer than Ray Bliss, which, if you're not from Ohio, that may not mean anything. But no, I worked for him, and I shared many an hour in the car with him and listening to the calls and getting advice and just learning from what he wanted to do, or what his philosophy was as how parties should be built. His legacy to him wasn't electing the governors or the statewides. It was building up the county infrastructures. And I think it was in the 80 percentile of how many Republicans were elected. And, that creates your bench.
Yeah.
And and Sean would know this. First thing was that it was a service bureau. We were there to serve everybody else, and can't argue with the results of what happened over that tenure. And so
Pat, you mentioned that. What did you see from that type of leadership and really saying, okay, this is the purpose of this organization is service first, and really reaching out and building the bench as you mentioned. How have you seen that in not just in Ohio, but how have you seen that in other places where that might not have been the
well, that was kind of the rude awakening that I got, but also taught me lessons. For instance, in Kentucky, they didn't really have a strong party infrastructure, and this is back in 2012, but they have since built it up and they took back the House. So it took a few years, but they were able to build it by whether it was candidate recruitment or more interaction with county parties to get people involved. But like states like California, it's getting better.
Yeah.
But it's not where it needs to be. But their new leadership team is doing their best to try to make that happen in such a large state to get, because California literally is 5 different states in one, and trying to figure out the right people. So maybe the recall effort will help in that. But we'll have to see. But then down in Louisiana, a lot of that was, I don't want to say disjointed, but I didn't really even interact with the county chairs. It was the campaign, and you're just talking to the individual voters and trying to get people involved on your own, because they just didn't have the infrastructure at the local level. Yeah. And granted, that was a special. And then I would say the same for Alabama in the second. It was all about the campaign, and it was just trying to engage people, because most people are just like, why should I do this? Why do I need to get involved? We're a Republican state, we're a red district. And it's like, well, you need to do this because that helps the broader picture of what goes on down the road. I mean, look at, the fact that Doug Jones won there, that should never
exactly. In Louisiana, they got a Democrat governor, and you think about Alabama, and it wasn't that long ago that most of the counties there actually had Democrat officials.
Yeah, and that's the kind of the caveat of the South, is because everybody, they stay Democrat because they want to vote for their buddy that's going to run for dog catcher. And while they still trend to be conservative, that it doesn't always hold up. So you've got to identify them, but once you start talking to people, they come into the fold, and they'll work, and you have to make the argument for, okay, you're conservative, but why aren't you part of the Republican Party? And that's usually the excuse they give. And it's like, well, go get involved. Why don't you're already volunteering, you're on our list. If you don't like what the party itself is doing, sign up to be on one of the committees.
So this is one of the great things from your experience, and those of us who, I guess, did it the old way, where you went and you managed races and you lived in, all the different states. And I'll be curious to find out how many states you've lived in. It's I used to be able to get most of my belongings into my trunk and to one part of the back seat, and I was able to. I knew exactly how it all fit, like a Tetris puzzle. I could get it all back there. And I'm guessing you have a similar kind of an experience having worked in so many different places.
Yeah, no, my biggest thing was because I mean, obviously, I flew to most places, and like I didn't even have a car in California because I made sure we set up our office 3 blocks away from my apartment. And it almost was like the social network movie, where we were in an office, and then we moved over to a house. But regardless, they were only 3 blocks apart from me. And my biggest thing is, taking my dog with me.
Mm-hmm.
So he actually flies out to everywhere I go. So whenever he sees the crate come out, he's like, "Oh gosh, we're moving again." but no, but in Vegas, I had my car. But yeah, you're right. You can make sure you fit everything in, and I pretty much left everything behind there. And then down in when I was in Mississippi, Louisiana, and Alabama, I basically my car died in Memphis when I was coming back to Ohio. And so we were sitting on the road waiting to get picked up. And I just threw the keys to the driver and said, "Just take the car." And he's like, "What?" I was like, "Just junk it and take me to the airport so I can rent a car and drive back home."
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's a fun life. You can't do it exactly like that forever, but it's a fun life. And what you do is, so you've been in every region of the country.
Yeah.
And you get to see that people are the same, but they're different everywhere also. So what is it that you've seen from all those different places that you've been? You've noticed the differences, but what have you seen that's really kind of the same no matter where you are?
I would say that the conviction of local activists, that they want to be involved, and sometimes there's a lack of direction from whether it's the county or the state on what to do. And so a lot of times it's talking to them to be like, "Okay, well, why don't you go here and do this?" And this is another way to get involved with whatever, like whether it's a different club or anything like that, because a lot of times it's people want to get involved, they just don't know how.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you made a great point, particularly about the South. One of the things that we've seen, that I've seen when working in the South, is that sometimes that party structure is a little more disjointed, I think, as you said, or not as organized, because you got to remember that for decades there were a few Republicans that might have a chance to win. And so what they would do is whenever that came around, then it was all put into that campaign. And like, that's where all the efforts went. And so one of the things that we've seen working there is that it was really up to the campaign to build like infrastructure, where I think in states like Ohio, there is a built-in infrastructure that can that's pretty easily either rebuilt or reloaded and taken to bear, so that some of that stuff is not left on the campaigns. And one of the things I want to ask you is, what have you seen in the strong party organizations? Like, what has that been that has really stuck out, that you go either a county or a state?
I would say, at the county level, it's, a chair that's able to fundraise and recruit talent, but also engage, people that are on their central committee, or that they recruit people and make them feel valued and put out a structure to go out in the neighborhood in your ward or your precinct and recruit your volunteers and, give them the leadership to come up with their own team, so to speak, and not be paranoid if you're a county chair, like, oh, they're going to go out and do something and cause a ruckus. Mm-hmm. But and that's the one thing that I learned and I've seen obviously in Ohio, because it's the candidate training and the leadership training that we've had, or even heck back at the RNC and the colleges. But in states like California, I've seen them grow with trying to do that kind of outreach. Kentucky has tried to do that kind of building from the ground up now that they have the resources. And a lot of that, was from the leadership of Mitch McConnell, and nobody yell at me for saying Mitch McConnell, but that's really what it is, because it is pretty disjointed in a lot of states, because they either don't see the necessity of it or they just don't want to do it because they're like, hey, status quo is fine. And that's really not the case, because that's when states turn from red to blue. Mm-hmm. And it's like, if you look at the Democrats in Ohio, oh yeah, we've got all the unions and things like that, but their party infrastructure has deteriorated completely because they're not building it up. They're not trying. And
yeah, that's a good point. And I think looking at where the parties have had success, I do think successful fundraising, but also having a value proposition is really what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That there's something for the activists to do that makes a difference. Mm-hmm. And, and a lot of times for us, it's been phone calls, knocking on doors, maybe it's producing the slate card, stuff like that. And then also at the county level, what you're talking about is really connecting with the rank and file Republicans and empowering your precinct leaders to do that, and really doing some recruitment there.
Yeah, because I think you guys would probably agree, but yeah, if you don't treat people with the respect for them giving their time, mm-hmm. They're not going to come back.
Oh, absolutely. And it is something that I think parties have gotten better at, which is, mm-hmm. Somebody's coming in. First off, I need to make sure that I have something of value for them to do every time that they walk through my doors or whatever.
Yeah, and that's the toughest thing, because you don't always necessarily have something for them to do of value. And
I'm guessing you know Chris Faulkner, who used to run the RNC campaign schools and is from the neighboring state of Indiana. He used to refer to volunteers as these beautiful, kind, nice little sheep. They would come into our headquarters, and they're just so wonderful. And then we throw them through a meat grinder, and that's that's their experience.
Yeah, that sounds like Faulkner.
And now his advice was to not do that, but sometimes the experience with him, it might have been like a meat grinder. I don't know.
Yeah. The one thing that I really see is something that I think for the party to take on. Have something that they're taking on, like, it could be, we're going to turn out the Republicans for you. You focus on the independents and some of the weaker folks, but we are going to focus on making sure that our people, the ones that the thing that they're looking for on the ballot is an R by their name or knowing who the Republican is, we are going to make sure that they show up and know every which way they can vote and really be able to do that is one thing. Working in the party structure, what are some advantages that parties have that not even campaigns or other folks have when running?
I would say the biggest advantage is using non-allocable mail, because
tell us a little bit about that.
So basically, non-allocable mail, you have to, the parties have special permits where you get all of your mail sent out at a distinct cost advantage. Mm-hmm. And usually, I guess it depends on which organization it is, but the party's able, like, for instance, in Ohio, the party does a lot of the House caucus mail, Senate mail, and local mail, and they also do slate cards. But I think the rate's 22 cents now.
Yeah, it really depends, but you can really, generally you're saving 8, 9, 10 cents on the postage up here.
Right.
So just to be clear on what,
it's postage, not the
profit. Yeah,
it could get you an extra round of mail.
Yeah,
potentially.
And that is something that only state parties have. So for folks, there are 50 of these permits for each party, mm-hmm. and they're doled out to the state parties, and that's who has this. And so in some states, like you're talking about, they've really decided, you know what, this is one of the values that we have, that you can actually monetarily see it. And so, like in a state like Ohio, we've decided, hey, we're going to work with the caucuses, the county parties, whoever, to make sure that if they want mail sent, that they get to do it at a less expensive rate.
And every party across the country should be seeking to do this and setting up some kind of structure. You do find parties that are unwilling to do it, which is highly frustrating.
Yes. Yeah. It is amazing. And so it's one of the things that is available for folks. And I think something that might surprise our viewers and our listeners, that this is something that really any state party and hopefully any local party by extension can do. So yeah.
What demand that in every single state party, demand that every state party.
Yes.
Yes.
That's an action that you can take today, is to reach out and say, hey, what are you doing for our candidates down the ballot? What other advantages or opportunities do parties have, either county or state, that campaigns or super PACs or some of these other groups that do some of the campaign stuff don't have?
I would say, well, they have the ability to raise more money. And what historically we've done in all the states that I've worked in is set up joint fundraising agreements. And then that money, gets funneled into resources for, like, that money gets funneled to said candidates, and they're able to maximize like they can use that for the mail, they can use that for any other advertising and things like that, but also resources for staffing and just growing their operation to just make the bandwidth bigger.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Dustin, I think we've had some comments.
Yeah, so Alex says, what can we do as young Republicans to help get more young people involved in the party? Democrats seem to do a better job of getting younger voters and activists into their party. Partly depends on where you are in the country. How can we model them in a better way? We'll go to that question first.
That's a good one. I know Sean and I have experience with that, and a lot of the time is it's really engaging them in person, because they're like, if we're talking college age kids, there's there's a million things going on in their lives, and especially in the world of COVID right now, it doesn't exactly work, but it's just getting them in the room. You have to get in there and sell you the conservative Republican philosophy. And most of the time they come back and they want to get engaged, or just say, hey, you want to go meet so and so. And that's a good way to get them. Like, if they see, like, if there's a lot of people that geek out by meeting politicians, so if you're quasi interested in all that, it helps. It's the little things. It's the same thing like with as far as doing county party work. As a club leader, or as somebody that's trying to recruit, get them to invest and buy in. That's what it is. Like, you have to make the effort. It's not them coming to you. It's you it's you doing the work.
Absolutely. I think there's a couple of things I see just dovetailing off of that is, and we talked about a little bit earlier, is being welcoming. Like, if they happen to show up to you, make sure that you're welcoming them and not saying, oh, it's kind of weird that somebody who's younger than everybody else is here.
Yeah.
Let me be suspicious for a little while. That doesn't work. So
no, that goes well with this next comment. I believe the grand old party needs to make certain they define themselves within the organization, outside of the organization. This is what kind of follows along with what you're saying. At many Republican meetings, I'm left wondering why I wasted my time to show up, even though I'm a Republican. And you're hearing lots of Robert's rules and everything else. A young person is not necessarily going to be all that excited about going to some of those meetings.
Yeah. So yeah, and it really goes back to an episode that we had where we talk about attention, intention, and retention. So really get to them in a way that's interesting. It is not a crime to be interesting. So we should embrace that. Pat?
Yeah. Parliamentary procedure is not exactly everybody's favorite topic when you're young, but it is where I learned it.
Yeah. Well, you talked about running for the Central Committee, which is different in Ohio, where you actually run for it in an actual election, right?
Yeah, it's the primary every even year.
So you actually ran a real campaign, and you said that there's some people who pushed back on that. How old were you when you first ran?
My first time I was 22.
Cool.
And then I'm the then party or county party chair thought I was aligned with someone else that I didn't even work for or even knew. So he nixed me on that one. But then I moved out to the burbs, and I ended up winning the next time in OSU for the next couple terms I was there, and then out to the burbs. But I had 3 contended elections, and so I had to go out and campaign. I was out knocking doors. I had my palm card, and I would talk to the voter at the door and saying, hey, I'm a Republican activist. This is what I do. These are the folks I've worked for. These are my my credentials. And that worked, because and you get to hear from them, because you want to ask them, so what do you think of the Republican Party? Because 99% of people don't know what a Central Committee is or what they do. So when you get through that, they might give you the litmus test of, okay, well, what do you think about this candidate? And so that can always be a tough question. if you can't read them right there, but but yeah, no, it's it's being a central committee person it's a thankless job if you don't actually do the work to recruit people in your neighborhood to go out and knock doors or do it yourself. Because I know there were many a Saturday that I would, and this is back in the day, I would get people, bring donuts, we'd meet at Home Depot, and then everybody would have their walk lists back when we had lists, and go out and knock on doors and get the precinct covered or the ward covered. And, that's, and we had Republicans in that area back then.
Yeah. And it really makes a difference.
Yeah. So no, I mean, it's an easy way to get people involved, but you have to be motivated if you're going to run for central committee. Just know that it's more than just showing up, once a month or once a quarter to a ballroom somewhere and, schmoozing with people. You've got to actually put the time in.
Well, and we've seen it when people are actually working their precincts and getting, first off, this is just a great way to get to know your neighbors and get to know people who live around you, who share, your point of view. It's looking at it from a completely positive standpoint there. Then it also gives you an opportunity, as you mentioned, to recruit others and get others working for the cause and what you're out to do, and really promoting the conservatism and what the Republican Party's up to specifically there. And then third, it can really make a difference in elections. So, so some precinct folks take it on themselves that they're going to reach out to the Republicans in their precinct. That's what some of them are going to do. Others say, you know what, I'm going to also take on meeting some of the independents and people that aren't necessarily affiliated with a party. And we've seen it in campaigns when people say, you know what, this is my precinct, and no kidding, I'm going to make sure it goes for our candidate or our party. And they really make the difference. And we've seen some massive swings just from people say, and it really comes from, I'm your neighbor and I'm supporting this ticket. And I think it'd be great for our neighborhood. And they go, wow, I can't believe somebody in my neighborhood thought enough to give up their Saturday morning to come knock on my door.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've done that because, I was the paper boy in my neighborhood growing up, so I can go door to door and I knock on it and I talk to them and they're like, oh wow, all right, well, sounds like a good choice.
Yeah, it's like you're owning that turf. You're saying this is my home. I'm going to make sure it goes a certain way. And one person taking that stand for that area, it makes a difference. Can you imagine what that'd be like if Republicans did that across the country? We actually went back to building our precinct organization. We have a note that 50% of precinct leaders are vacant across the country, and that is it's been that way for a while, I think. But it's really, in the world's different, digital communications where people are spending a lot of their time, but still, if you had that happen, that would just cut through.
Because I think especially even with COVID right now, I think people appreciate the face-to-face, knocking on the door. Like, they're more receptive because I know, the phone calls with everything that gets old. And then, but it's the personal touch. And if it's somebody in your community that it definitely makes a difference. And you should never discount that or Like if somebody, doesn't want to talk to you, don't get discouraged. You push through.
Oh, exactly right. And it is, I think now more than ever, it's going to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody who's willing to come and talk to me now. I mean, my goodness, that's pretty exciting, actually. I mean, I think that's why when people actually hear a live person on the other end of their phone, they're more likely to actually talk now than they were even a year and a half ago. And it's the same at the doorstep. Like there's actually more engagement there, and it's because it is something that's even a little more foreign. It is hard to believe. It used to be, we talked about it like it was the thing you had to do. And now it is not only the thing you need to do, but it actually, we've seen that it really can make an impact, and you can see it in places where it happens versus where it doesn't happen.
Yeah. No, I mean, it goes back to what you were saying earlier, Sean, about, going after the independents and, people that are modeled to be something else. That's what changes, voters' mind, is that personal touch.
Well, I'm curious with Ohio, taking Ohio as a test case. Ohio's been a pretty successful party organization. So, Pat Melton, tell us, what is the way for Ohio, in particular, the state and the local parties, to take it to the next level? We've had some success, but how do you keep growing that party infrastructure? What would you say as we look into the future we would want to do to build the party?
I would say using the infrastructure of the state party, with increasing field representatives, like from the actual party, because I have to distinguish that from the RNC victory folks that have been more commonplace in the last couple of years, and then build because each field rep is basically a campaign manager or a GC type. And they work day in, day out with all the county chairs and help them put together their campaign plans and, nudge them along to get their party where it needs to be if it's not. Like, for instance, I'm in Franklin County and we're in a bit of a rebuild, and, there could be a bit more leadership there to and guidance to get them on the right path. But yeah, I would say you're basically we have 5 regions, but going into that, like if you're going into Hamilton County, you're still talking to the chair, you're talking to the local people, and you're just trying to help them better themselves. But a lot of times you have to show them the pathway. It's like, okay, well, what's your fundraising plan? What's your communications plan? What's your candidate recruitment plan? What's your volunteer recruitment plan? And that usually opens people's eyes, and then it's up to them to do it, but you're there guiding them the way they need to go.
I think that is a great idea, not just because I used to be a field rep at the Ohio.
I think we've all been field reps. You guys have been field reps in Ohio, but it's a great way for people to get started, or one of the earlier jobs that you have in politics. It's a great way to really get to know everything.
Yeah, it was really a great way to really get a feel for an entire area and really get to know people and get to know what the county party chairs might be struggling with. And for me, I had Northeast Ohio, and that was back when Mahoning County used to vote for Democrats for president. I'm glad to say that's over now. But in some of these places, but really being able to have those conversations and be able to relay to the political director, the executive director, the chairman, what is going on, so that they can make the strategic decisions that need to be made, and really get to advocate for your area a little bit. And I think it's something that I have seen has been missing, because, as you mentioned, those field reps really became RNC employees, so not as much working under the state party and being funded that way and worked that way. And I think that makes a difference, because the objective is different.
What's going on there? Why is it? So it's the objective. What else is different about that?
Yeah, well, I think the objective, just to say a little bit more about that, the objective of the RNC is to elect people to federal office.
Yeah.
That is their job. Where the state party's job is to build as Pat said, and I agree the way I see it, which is building the local infrastructure and electing statewide Republicans. So it really becomes, then it's dependent on, okay, are you a competitive state for the presidential race, and do you have some sort of competitive Senate seat, or you're not going to get these folks that are the regional field reps. So I think when you're looking at Ohio and other parties, I do think that's why when you mentioned that, Pat, that, as you can tell, it lit me up. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's been something of robbing from the future when we have the victory, the RNC field reps, because we're focused on only that current campaign. We're not building the bench, as you have been suggesting. We're not thinking about these lower level races. We're not thinking about building the party for the next election cycle as well. It's once there's not a competitive Senate race, or there's not a competitive, or presidential race, and they pull up stakes, you may not have those people there anymore. Most likely you won't have those people.
Right. And Dustin, to that point, when I was doing the DeWine Super PAC, I was working up in Northeast Ohio, and, not to blame anybody at the RNC or anything like that, but they're like a lot of the county chairs that I talked to get intel from and get volunteers from, they just didn't have good interaction with them, because a lot of them, like you said, they pull up stakes and they're only interested in one thing, and which was the federal races. So it's good for state parties and county parties to just have some kind of infrastructure, less so at the county party just because of budgetary reasons, but that's what makes volunteers all the more crucial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's where actually having these precinct leaders filled and active makes a difference at the county level. I really see that. So I think that's right. Being in connection in some way, and I think the field organization at a state level is a great thing, or having active precinct leaders at a county level. There is one thing for the future of a successful party. What are some other characteristics that you see in a successful party going forward?
I would say it would be, you need a strong party chair who has a vision and that can fundraise.
Mm-hmm.
And because if you can do that, then you can recruit the appropriate staff and find talent. Or, you have to be, depending on what state you're in, you have to be the peacemaker between, the few things that, I always appreciated about Chairman Bennett was he every year he would nix out the fact that we had to have state conventions because they wasted time, resources, and money when people could be out knocking doors. And he, brokered deals when they needed to be made to save the party from itself. And
yeah, that doesn't happen most places.
No. In states like California, they have 2 conventions a year. And I remember going into the gubernatorial election, and we're having a convention in October. I was like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a waste of money that you guys don't have.
Yeah.
But I would say, I mean, that's really, maybe I'm just an old curmudgeon, but the things that we learned, going through the ORP, I think that's the best way to do it. Like, and then engage the younger generation to get them involved, because we were just out of college when we did that stuff. But we learned. And I think if you keep passing on, I've tried to teach everyone that I've had work for me, I'm not perfect, but teach them the skills that I learned, and it's turned out they're all doing pretty well right now.
Yeah. Well, that is something that we really pride ourselves in too, is really training, really offering an education in what's going on while we're getting a job done. But, right. If you leave it, we don't think you ought to leave any campaign not having learned something that will be helpful going forward.
For your whole life, honestly.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like an NFL coaching tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we talk about that on occasion. We were talking about Russia's tree last or a couple weeks ago, the radio tree.
Yeah,
but yeah, having that, and it really is an outgrowth of really being able to build something. And I think that it's going to take some vision, like you said, and maybe going back to some things that worked in the past, and bringing those back, engaging people in new ways that you've been talking about, which is really exciting. Whatever it's going to take to really get people interested in being part of the party again. Because I do think, if I'm looking at a challenge here for the party, it's that I think some people just don't even know what a party does.
Yep.
And so they think it's anything that they don't like. They think that's what a party does.
Yeah.
And then there's some distrust of the party. Like, oh, they're out to do their own thing and they have their own agenda. And maybe they do at a state and county level. And that's something you just got to be looking for. And that's why what we're talking about today is more people getting involved will make a huge difference there.
If you don't show up, you can't make that difference. I think about, we did an episode back in the fall. We read a little bit from Lincoln's track from when he's a Whig on Get Out the Vote. He explains Get Out the Vote, exactly how you would do it even today. Completely different technologies, different everything, but still it's pretty basic. And then we also showed the video of Ronald Reagan and John Wayne explaining Get Out the Vote back in the 60s. And you feel like it would be good for the California Republican Party to go back and watch their own video from or film from the late 60s, because it really explains the precinct organization and how you can actually get people engaged in the party, and you get Hollywood actors involved too, and people want to show up. It looks like a lot of fun, honestly.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate that. I think this has been a great conversation so far. Pat, what are some last thoughts for folks as they're kind of looking at either how to get involved or what would make the difference, either from a activist standpoint or for the party leaders out there, what would make a difference to really be able to have more people come in and be involved?
Well, I would say if you're an activist, I would show up. That's the first thing. Like, go down to your county headquarters and just say, what can I, or if you have a particular candidate that you like, what can I do? Because a lot of times people just, they talk instead of actually engage. So I think that would be the first step on that level. And then I would encourage people to run for their central committee, depending on whatever year that is, because that gets you a better sense of what goes on, or even show up to the central committee meetings that they have. Because I mean, I think, most of the ones I've been to, most of the people that show aren't even members of the committee. But with what Dustin said, with 50% of them being vacant across the country, there's always room.
Yeah.
But I would do that on the engagement level. And if you wanted to, you can always run for a state committee, and that's just a different level of what goes on. And sometimes they vote on endorsements, but most of that, it's still getting involved, but they don't normally do much of the grassroots work like the central committee people do at the county level. So yeah, I would get involved, become a precinct captain, or a committee person, and recruit people in your neighborhood. And because there's look how many races that have been razor tight this last cycle, and that, like, getting those people involved to go door to door, that can make the difference. It's always cliche to say one vote, but these days it's becoming more true than ever.
Yep.
That's a great point. And just pointing to a few races like that, there were 2 races for Congress that were decided by 25 votes or less this year. And Nancy Pelosi might be trying to overturn both of those right now, but
yeah, at least one.
So
pretty remarkable.
But you're absolutely right. It is something that can make a difference, and you see it in county races. You just think of all the ones that go to mandatory recounts and all these things, and so it really does make a difference, and it trickles its way down. I think that is great advice for folks, and I think for the county folks out there that are listening and watching, I think really being able to be welcoming, and I think that's really something I really got from the comments from everyone here, was that is the thing that's going to make the difference. Keep them coming back, and have it be fun, have it be important, have it be interesting to them, and that'll make a world of difference.
It's all about value.
Yeah. And can you imagine if one person in Iowa took Pat Melton's advice and showed up and became a precinct committee person? There could have been a landslide of 50 votes in that congressional election. Well, Pat, thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you for your comments on the show, on other shows. We really do appreciate you always bring in a lot of insight and great advice, and really we can all be really learn from your experience from across the country, and we really do appreciate you joining us today.
No, I appreciate it, guys. Thanks. It's been fun.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, that was a lot of fun. It was great having Pat here, and really great advice.
He shared a lot of insight on really having worked in parties, and then also needing to work with parties, and that's something that the campaigns need to do and need to be able to do. And we've been in enough campaigns where the party is working on stuff completely different, and they're interested in completely different things than what your campaign's up to, and that's going to happen sometimes. But really being able to work together and have a party that says, okay, yes, I want to be able to work together as much as it's possible, and a free flow of information and ideas that's going on is going to be so critical for success up and down the ballot.
Yeah. Well, I one of the comments that one of the folks in the audience mentioned was it needs to be purposeful. Really, it's getting back to basics, and that's what I really got from Pat's comments. Is there's some basic things that a party can do, and if they go and they do those jobs, then they are going to have a bigger bench. They're going to have a stronger local party, which is going to feed into everything else. I really, it gave me an insight when we were talking about the field representatives. We really have been every single cycle rebuilding the field organization in most parties across the country based on where the targeted races are. Whereas if you're like Ohio, the ORP is the Ohio Republican Party. If more parties were able to be like that, and part of it's a money question. The Ohio rules for parties are a little bit different than other states. Some states, they've put in campaign finance reforms that are killing parties and making it really difficult for them to have much in the way of infrastructure. And it's going to be incumbent upon people to fundraise to be able to make sure that they can build the party ongoingly. The local representation is so important, having that bench.
Oh my goodness, yes. And you make a great point. You look at states that have decided, oh, the party has too much power. Mm-hmm. So we're going to, particularly on fundraising, we're going to limit their ability to fundraise. So guess what? It's not that people have decided we're going to stop TV advertising and radio advertising and any of those things. That's not what happens here. What happens is a shadowy outside group becomes the group that
determines things.
Yep. And you don't have a say in that, where you actually have a say in every state in the union. You have a say in what your state party looks like and what your county party looks like. Mm-hmm. So wherever you live, you can have an impact on that. And we're talking to conservatives and Republicans today, but by the way, this is true for Democrats too.
Yeah.
So everywhere in the country, you have a say over it. And when these laws come in that people think are a great idea, like, there's too much money in politics, they say. Of course, we spend less on politics than we spend on Halloween.
Yeah.
And so,
or chewing gum.
But when you're thinking that way, what they're really saying is where you actually have a vote has less impact. Mm-hmm. And where you have zero to no say, is where those dollars are going to go. So
the truth is, the parties that are the most robust across the country, the places where the party is robust, there are more regular people who are influencing the direction of the state. The truth is, in a place that has a robust party, you have mostly blue-haired ladies are the ones who pretty much say how things go, because they're the ones who show up, and that's the thing to learn from that, is the people who show up are the ones who are going to determine the direction of the party. And that is it's a very basic insight. All you have to do is show up and step up and speak up, and you are likely going to quickly change your local party, and then be able to change your state party and onward.
Well, that was actually something I took from Pat's comments. It's basically he showed up at the first meeting, and then he's like, you know what, we should have younger people involved. That's why I'm going to do this. Mm-hmm. And then he ran, and then served on the central committee, and it makes a difference. Yeah. You get to have a say, but you also get to really get to know your neighbors, and that's where it really has the impact. Is not in the votes that happen, every quarter or every 6 months or whatever, on whatever the party operations are, but it's really on that conversation that you're having out there in your community, and being able to say, here's what's going on, and being able to bring back some of the information you're getting from those meetings or the candidates you've met, and being able to share that with your neighbors. So,
it'd be great if every local party was welcoming to new folks, but we know that's not going to happen everywhere.
Yep.
And I would say take this as a case study. Pat really modeled what would make a difference for anybody out there who wants to make a difference. Follow Pat's lead. He showed up, he ran into friction. He ran into some pushback. That's going to happen to people.
Yeah.
And what happened is he didn't let it stop him. He kept going, and then he was successful, and then he got to make a difference, and then he got to make a difference in lots of different states, and then he's continuing to make a difference in his home state. So that's the thing, is that if you are out there and you want to make a difference, you're probably going to run up against somebody who objects to whatever. That's going to happen. Keep going.
Yeah. And look, if you're up to something big in the world, you are going to run into friction.
Yeah.
Period. That's just the way it's going to work. And that's why people like us exist, Dustin.
Yeah. So if you want to become a Political Trade Secrets insider, you see it right there on the screen. Go to politicaltradesecrets.com, get exclusive stuff, get the best, freshest political trade secrets out there. You can go to politicaltradesecrets.com, and you can also be a part of our chat community. We had a couple of comments today that we included in the show. You can go to, you can dial 202-918-3345. Send a text to that number, 202-918-3345, to join our text community. It's really the best place to be connected with us, and really be in the know. Get the absolute freshest political trade secrets by doing that.
Absolutely. It is a great way to connect and be truly a part of our community. And so, which I think is a great name for it, really. And look, if you are thinking about running for office, if you're thinking about what it takes to be a powerful political leader, reach out to us. It's www.olsonstrategies.com. That's OLSON strategies.com. We'd love to have a conversation with you about it. Also, if you're thinking about you want to make a difference for candidates out there, reach out to us about our internship program or our fellowship program. We would love to have a conversation with you about that as well. How can you reach out to us on any of those topics? You can email us, Sean, SEAN, @olsonstrategies.com, or Dustin @olsonstrategies.com. And let's set up that conversation today.
By the way, on Olson Strategies, if you are a party organization, we've worked with a lot of county parties across the country. We work with state parties to help them, go to the next level. We work with county party chairs to help them with all the different campaign tools that we have at Olson Strategies. We want to be a sounding board, even if we're not doing projects for you. Specifically, we do like talking with county chairs, because this really is the rubber meets the road position in the party. They're the ones really getting stuff done at the local level. And Michael Barnett, chair in Florida, people like him made the difference in giving President Trump a huge margin of victory in the state. And he's in a blue county, or a county that used to be more blue, and it's not as much anymore. It's now turning red because of work of people like him. Yeah. And that's a big deal. We want to help people like that.
Yeah. And it really is the hard work that makes the difference. And we would love to help you really focus that in the places that are going to make a difference. So reach out to us, and spot on. Absolutely agree there. And we're proud to be sponsored by Grassfire. What do? Canvassing, petitioning, live calling, on the doorstep, in front of the grocery store, over the phone. It is your opportunity to make a great first impression. It's the opportunity to actually get yourself or your issue onto the ballot. You really only get one shot at that. make it count, and have it be done with the professionalism that Grassfire brings to it. They're better than anybody in the business. www.grassfire.us. They also fuel 10centtexting.com. This is your way to connect with your voters, your constituents, right where they are on their mobile device. What is in that message? An image, GIF, short video that can have maximum impact for the message you're trying to deliver. So that's 10centtexting.com.
Awesome. And thank you for all the wonderful comments throughout the show today. We really do appreciate it. If you were one of the folks who shared the program today, thank you for doing that. Thank you for joining the Share Force. It really does make a difference. Thank you to everybody who has texted to join the community. That is as simple as texting that number, say, hey, hello, whatever you want to say, and you will get a link back. You just click on the link, and then once you click on the link, you'll opt in. After that, all the text will be from me and or Sean. So if you would be willing to text that, that's really great. I see that we have at least a couple people who've done that during this episode. Thank you for doing that. And thank you to everybody for your commitment to our country. And one of the ways that you can do that is to take Pat Melton's advice and be a part of your local and state party and really get out there, work hard, make a difference, and have the party reflect you and your community so that our country can reflect you and your community's values. And it really just takes as much as you showing up to be a part of that. Sean, any last thoughts you want to add to that?
Well, really appreciated what Pat had to share today, and appreciated. I know that you've spent time working in state parties and doing that kind of work too. So really appreciate what you brought to the table today. And it was really just a great conversation. I think, and I look forward to the feedback that our listeners and viewers have for us, because really love to hear what you got out of this and what's making a difference in your neck of the woods. So,
yeah. Well, thank you, everybody. We appreciate it. We will be back tomorrow with more great political trade secrets at around 11 a.m. Thank you very much. This has been another episode of Political Trade Secrets.
Join us next time by subscribing on iTunes and get show notes and sign up for our newsletter at politicaltradesecrets.com.